Hello, people. We are here for another talk in the DebConf. It's autopkgtest office hours with Antonio Terceiro and Paul Gevers and others. And Terceiro, it's for you.
Yeah, hello everyone. We are going to start here. We have a preliminary agenda on the pad that it will be shared soon. And I think we could start introducing ourselves. So I'm Antonio. I created DebCI and nci.debian.net, and I'm still maintaining the service. Let's go around the table with introductions. Next, Paul.
Yeah, so I'm Paul, or nickname Alvarez. I joined Antonio to help maintain the CI service. And because I did that, I also ended up in the release team for the integration with autopkgtest. Next.
Hi, I'm Graham, or Dings on RC. I'm also part of the release team and an avid auto-package tester. You may have received some bug reports from myself or mainly Paul, so you probably know me.
Gillem, can you go next?
Okay. Hi, I'm Gillem, and I'm a member of the setup, and I'm just here to work with
I think your audio is really low. We can't really hear you.
Oh, hold on. Is it better now?
Yes, it's a lot better.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I was saying, I'm a member of the crypt setup packaging team, and it's not so clear to me how to make auto-package tests for those kind of packages that deal with stuff at the early boot stage. So I'm just here for the question part. Thank you very much for this section, for this session, by the way.
Cool. Yeah, I think if anyone else wants to join, just ask me or Paul. It's Terceiro or Elbrus on IRC, and we can share the link.
I actually put the link in the pad at the top.
Oh yeah? Then that's done then. Okay, so the goal of this session is for us to help people who are, as Gillem said, trying to add auto-package tests for their packages, and they have some questions or they want some help. And that's the goal here. We'll do a quick introduction of some updates we have since we had a session last year. This year, since last year, we all have almost all release architectures covered in NCI. So we have all both x86 architectures in ARM64, ARM-HF, and PPC64EL. They are covered and fully supported, meaning we have enough power to keep up with the queue of tests for those architectures. We also have S390X there, but we don't have enough CPU power to keep up with the other architecture, so that one is always lagging behind. We don't have any MIPS, so maybe we should go after that. And we are working on ARM-EL, so that's probably going to happen soon. Another round of changes we had most recently is Pavitch is our GSOC intern for this year, and she added several new very nice features, and we are really happy with her work. Maybe Pavitch should be here, but she didn't say anything. She added the ability to log in with Salsa, so now we migrated from using the old style SSO certificates to using Salsa to log in. We now have private jobs, so that's going to mainly be used for testing security updates, especially the embargoed ones. And we can also now take custom apt repositories. This feature is going to change a little bit in the near future because we realized of a few security implications of allowing arbitrary repositories. So we need to pre-approve a list of accepted repositories. So if don't just start using that, and because there's going to be some changes to the API there. And then that's it for the updates. Go ahead,
Maybe
Paul.
we should mention here that we already during this DebConf started talking with the Perl team, the Ruby team, and the janitor team or Yelmer. I think those teams could be using this feature, and there's probably more teams that do similar work.
Yeah,
so
one
feel free
idea,
to come
for
and talk to
instance,
us.
yes, one idea in the concept of the Ruby team is that we usually test the transitions with a private repository where we do rebuilds, and then we could be using that repository to test on CI. So that could help us find issues earlier than uploading to unstable and seeing what breaks.
Yeah,
So,
similar thing
that's
goes
going to be
for Perl.
helpful. Yeah. So then the main topic of the session is answering questions, and that's, I think we can go there now. I published a blog post on Planet a few weeks ago about this. So I created a repository on Salsa. It's this one in the pad, salsa.debian.org/CI team/autopkgtest help. And our idea is to use this repository for like long-term storage of these discussions. So we asked people to to post their questions there, and promise we would be answering them here. So that's what we're gonna do now. So if you have any questions related to autopkgtest and you want to help we figure out some details for your package, or you want to ask some general questions, feel free to post there, and I'm watching the repository, and we can. I also ask everyone who wants to help answer those questions to watch the repository, so you get notified when people post questions. And we are going to go one by one now, starting from the top. The first one by Zigo is autopkgtest for all packages in the OpenStack team. So I'm not going to read the question in the site now, but he basically he needs people to help with adding support, autopkgtest support for the OpenStack packages. That wasn't our intention when we created the repository. We mostly wanted to help people help themselves, but I think that's fair if that's one way of finding people to help with actual work. That's fine by me as well. So I think he mentioned that most of the packages have build time tests, and then the work needed is to adapt or add some glue code to also run those tests against on autopkgtest. And the point there is, for autopkgtest, you want to run the test against the installed package, so you want to avoid that the test load code from the source tree. So in the case of Python, that usually entails copying the test directory somewhere else to a temporary directory, changing to that directory, and then running those tests. I did this myself for a good number of Python packages, so that's not complicated. If you want to help with this work, you can comment on the issue there, issue number 1, and we can go from there. Any comments? Everyone else?
Also, I helped the MariaDB team in a similar way, where I adapted the the tests that were basically available in the suite to run. So I understand the request if you're a very busy one-man team. That help from others is very welcome, especially if it's such a targeted help request. That's it.
Okay. I think we can go ahead to question number 2. This one I will need to read because it's involves some details. So Josh, he posted a question called autopkgtest for my package placative. So this is a recurring question. So placative is a graphical application, and this is something we always get questions about this because it's tricky to test graphical interfaces, and that depends on heavy integration. For instance, if applications that use GTK can be tested using the GNOME accessibility toolkit, and that's usually well supported. For other toolkits, I'm not sure. You can always hard code like screen positions using X and like simulating clicks and keyboard typing, but that doesn't.
I hope we should recommend
sound
that.
very, that doesn't sound very robust, and it's going to break at some point.
So I had a brief look myself this week into the Doctail example that I already put in there to try and I have a long-standing ambition to test the GUIs that I also maintain in a similar way. I haven't. It's an extensive toolkit, so I haven't really gotten around to make anything useful. But it comes. There's a couple of examples actually in that folder. So for the package that I tried, WinFF, I could get it to show something, but I really need to figure out what I then want to trigger because it's for the Doctail example. It's you have to really program the clicks that you would want to do, which is of course fine, but it's quite extensive. So I'm going to do that, but I probably do it for a limited set of things because ideally, of course, for this kind of things, you want upstream support as well.
Yeah. And how does Doctail work? I mean, what does it use to poke at the application?
I don't know exactly, but it's probably very similar to that accessibility bus, or it really walks the tree of the window.
So you're using X, the X API?
I don't know for sure.
Yeah, so I think
a lot of examples that I've seen in our archive are done with XVFB run.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've used that as well, right?
Yeah, I think I used it in a few packages, yes. Yeah, well,
yeah.
The short answer is it's easier when the toolkit has explicit support for that, and it's harder if you rely on simulating clicks through X.
Yeah, but at least I want to document it in this issue what I figure out, so that if there's good examples in Debian archive, if anybody knows of a good example to test a GUI, then please add a link to this issue as well. That would be very helpful.
Yes, please. Okay. Anything else on this issue? Number 2? If not, then I think we can move ahead. So, issue number 3 by Lindy. is autopackage test for T-boot that must run on real hardware. Yeah, this is a tricky one because real hardware is a lot more difficult to manage for us.
You can, of course, still add tests, but the support on our side is not there yet.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, for here, real hardware is really tricky. And to be honest, I don't see we supporting it anytime soon.
So can you explain maybe, Antonio, what you, so if we would, so what would be needed here, that we have a VM that you can SSH into and just run the stuff that you want to do it that way, sort of kind of setup? I think Ubuntu has setups like that.
No, I don't think the issue is a VM. He needs real hardware, like physical hardware. Can't be a VM because T-boot is a bootloader and uses Intel execution technology. And as far as he knows, it's not possible to test this under virtualization. So we would need real hardware, and that's really tricky. So first we would need to have an auto-package test backend for doing this. So it's could be possible. So there is a project by Linaro where I work, and I work in this project for some years now. It's called Lava, which is Linaro Automated Validation Architecture, where we do support tests on real hardware, but there's a lot of work in integrating that hardware because the hardware needs to have out-of-band control of serial connection and power. So if you install a broken kernel, you need to be able to recover. So you need to be able to interact with the bootloader and stuff like that. And also this type of setup requires a lot of maintenance work, like physical hardware maintenance. So in the case of Linaro, there's 3 full-time people working on that to maintain a lab. So I don't know if we can realistically do this in Debian, to be honest.
But of course, what we I think it's still interesting for auto-package test to have the backend, and that
Yes.
people could
Yes.
create an auto-package test and run locally on Hardware if they have that. Then at least
Yes.
it is documented. It is possible to write the tests, and it's just not done centrally in the infrastructure, but
Right.
it could still be done locally.
Yeah, something else we could do is help Timo with. So he has a script here that he used to test. Yeah, but the problem is that the test needs to be driven from one machine and it actually runs in another machine. So that's even more complicated for us.
I remember that Wouter had a bug open, and I discussed it with Geert here as well today, that the request to have a server and a client instance support.
Yeah.
I'm not promising to work on that soon, but I have the bug in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, what we would need was, well, I think the first point is that we need to realize that we can't realistically test everything.
Nope.
That's just not possible to automate every possible type of test. In our setup, I guess we could have, yeah, and especially for these interactive bootloaders is a really tricky question. So if, right now, our CI setup assumes that the system being tested is the system running the tests themselves. So we
it's not
don't really have.
It's not clear to me from the question if this. I'm not familiar with this TXT thing, but if that's not possible right now to test under virtualization. I don't know if that's just because virtualization doesn't have any way to hook to the underlying hardware somehow yet, but it might come in the future. Or because if there is a way to expose, I mean, like as far as I know, with QEMU you can interact directly. You can interact to the TPM already.
Right.
And this has not always been there. It took a while for the QEMU developers to catch up, and it might be the same thing here. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, this is one issue. The other issue is also that in this case, you need to have one machine running the tests, and the actual code you want to test, like the actual piece of software, is in another machine, virtual or physical. It's still something that autopkgtest doesn't really support. Autopkgtest assumes you can run the test on the system under test itself.
But autopkgtest has support for SSH, so you could SSH into another system.
Right, but SSH assumes an OS running with user space up.
Right.
Okay.
Let's go to the next, where we actually have the requester on board.
Yes, let's go. Gillem, if you want to pose your question yourself now.
Yeah, well, okay. So for crypt setup, I think so. I don't really understand the tboot thing, but I think those are kind of related. We are trying to like get the autopkgtest to do some interaction at early boot stage, and then we boot into the real system and we verify that everything is in place. And if we are happy, we call the test a success. For crypt setup in particular, one of the difficulties that we had was that some of the bugs show up in very, very specific corner cases, like you have a very specific block device stack, like a certain, like, I don't know, some LVM configuration on top of some RAID configuration or something, whatever. Like, and yeah, maybe only on some CPUs that does not have iOS hardware acceleration, or I don't know, some exotic things. And of course, I mean, we try to test things, but as like up to now, the tests have always been like partly automated, but we have never completely automated. And sometimes we run into like pretty embarrassing bugs. Yeah, it would be really nice to have autopkgtest for that. But yeah, I finally managed to write a proof of concept for this. And this is why I said, if this TXT is exposed to the to QEMU somehow, then I don't see why the Timo couldn't follow this same approach that we are having, where so what we're doing is we are cheating really in the autopackage the dependencies, or like the control file. We have very little. We essentially only need things to set up the environment that we want to test. So we need QEMU, and then we need a kernel, and that's pretty much it. And we need the crypt setup binary, of course. And then so we use QEMU to and we make a initramfs with the binary that we want, and then we boot QEMU with a kernel, and we set up that environment, and then we boot, and we unlock. So we use the serial console to unlock, and then after we are done on the real system, we check that things are proper. And of course, if there is an issue there, I say we are cheating, because if there is an issue and something is, I don't know, you never get to the prompt, for instance, then the test will not fail. It will only fail because it runs into the times out and fails, which is not ideal. But I don't know if that's the best approach for that. Like I mean, as I said, the obvious downside of that approach is that we don't have proper dependencies. The dependencies are hidden in the they are hidden in that we are using them to debootstrap, but we only need a point deb. It's just a way to unpack the kernel because we only need the debs to use it to boot QEMU and things like that.
So are you creating a disk image by hand inside your tests?
Yeah.
To boot. So you need like nested KVM support, right? So you need to you run your tests in one KVM and you boot another one.
No, sorry. So I might need nested KVM if the autopkgtest test runners do use KVM already. Otherwise, no. So we boot QEMU, and then so we need KVM for that ideally, because otherwise it's really slow. And then we set up that environment, we ch-root into it like just a normal debootstrap, and then we reboot, and then we check that things are like we shut down QEMU and then we boot it again, so it's not nested.
But autopkgtest has the option to reboot. Is that then not what you want, or
no? Because so when you reboot, then I get I get the initramfs environment that I want to interact with. I have the crypt setup like passphrase prompts, and I need to simulate to send that passphrase over. So I need a serial console with a serial console doesn't have to be a serial console, but I need to have access to be able to type in something to the environment before it's being brought up again. I don't know if that's clear. It's like, if you are using crypt setup, when you get into grub, and then grub hands over to the initramfs, and then if you are using full list encryption, then you need to type in your passphrase. But you don't have a working environment there. You don't have network. You don't have. You can have network. It's possible to install it, but typically we want the bare minimum thing where you really don't have anything, and then we unlock, and then it's only then that we get to the final system that we can check. And if we never get to the final system, then we run into a timeout and we call the test fail.
Is it possible to set up so for instance, if you restrict your autopkgtest to only running on a virtual machine, can't you can't do the setup there because you need to provide the disk encryption password somehow, right?
Yeah.
And at the bare minimum, you would need to hit the return if the passphrase is empty.
I don't understand.
Well, what I was thinking, if you would not use the passphrase, then it would still ask to hit enter for the empty passphrase.
Yeah, well, there's a special case. The empty passphrase is rejected right away anyway, so it wouldn't work. But it's having access to real hardware would help also, because then we would, just like Timo said, we would. If we have like a proper KVM, not the virtualization thing, but a real KVM device, then we can ship stuff directly. Otherwise, I don't know. So I don't know if that approach. It does work, but it doesn't. It does feel that it kind of abuses the spirit of autopkgtest, because we don't have the proper dependencies. We need some .debs, and we unpack them manually, and then we install them. So I don't know.
Well, my main concern there is having 1,000 places where disk images are created, right? Because, well, we already have so many tools to create images in Debian. Like I think last time, Rico did a survey on this. There was like more than 10 disk image creation tools. And then if we have every package that needs to boot a VM for testing, also creating their images in different ways, this is a problem. So maybe we should have, well, I think the autopackage test KVM backend exposes the original disk image inside the virtual machine. So you can use that image to boot a second nested virtual machine. That could be a way of remedying that. Yeah, check the documentation and let me know. I think that's the case. I remember Martin talking about this at some point. So then you get the image for free, right? You just make a copy, maybe install something inside, and then you use that to boot your nested VM.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. But why is it a concern that we have too many disk image? Because they are installed, I mean, they are created in autopackage_tmp, and those are wiped away directly, or?
Yeah, no, my problem is not with the images, but the dozens of different methods people use to create images.
Okay, yeah.
And that
It's
can-
just the
that-
thing
and-
we're so great for in Debian that we can do things in 100 different ways. And it just means that we have 100 implementation that all have their own bugs. While if we would have like 3 implementations,
Right, yeah.
we may get higher quality.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so...
Yeah, but then we still need a solution for the interacting with stuff before the OS.
But this is already working if we have access to the disk image. I mean, well, it's still a bit cheating because we install the package manually, but it's
Right.
I mean, with like QEMU has this serial output, and if you boot with console equal TTY0, you can send things directly there.
Right.
And one has to weed away weed out the escape sequence and things like that. But those, I mean, this is doable, and it works in the proof of concept. Like, yeah, I don't know. But so I don't know. I don't want to. Maybe some other people have questions, but if just add another thing with the. Because you mentioned that earlier, and it's not clear to me how to do, like how to destupgrade. Because I mean the DebCI thing only. I mean, ideally, I would create my test environment with the crypt setup and all the stack from stable, and then I destupgrade to SID, and I reboot, and I check that things are as they should.
I think that's out of scope for autopackage test. I think that's more for pew parts, a test for that, actually. I don't think you should extend autopackage test to also...
But crypt setup doesn't work with pew part. I mean, pew part does not expose a virtual machine with a serial console. That's...
No, but my point is testing upgrades is already supported by pew parts, and if it's not doing for you, then you should extend that.
Yeah, but this is testing a early boot package where it doesn't really work to test these pew parts and not CH root. You need to,
you actually need a third class of testing infrastructure, which is not autopackage test and which is not pew parts, but it's something else.
Yes.
Just a warning. I've seen bugs that try to do different distribution updates, and it gets a sort of weird interaction with how we drive autopackage tests. So it's on the wiki, it recommends to not install packages yourself unless the purpose of the package that you're testing is to install packages. Of course, there's always corner cases, but let's first try to solve it at the autopackage test level if we can, and avoid packages trying to install stuff themselves. One of the, I think, sort of currently legit reasons to install a package by yourself is if you need to pre-configure stuff to actually work. And I think there's a couple of examples where that's needed. But it's a clutch, and it is, especially if we start to add like 3 or 4 apt repositories, you may get a different package than you assume when you write the test if you're testing only for one suite. And we do that all the time, so it gets a bit nasty.
I see.
Yeah, there is already some infrastructure for testing upgrades. I think there was even a talk earlier in the week about this, where a few talked about testing Debian installer, and I think that's the type of people have manage a Jenkins instance where they run this kind of testing. That's one way of testing. Maybe it's not something we can reasonably test on auto-package test because of all those issues Paul mentioned, where you might get a different package depending on how exactly you do things.
Sorry, the reason I was joining was because you were talking about KVM virtual machines, etc. And I understand not wanting to enlarge the scope too much, but I think if you're going to suggest there is a VM image there already, why not have a possibility to say, okay, have out-of-package test control a virtual machine that can possibly also communicate with the outside world through network if necessary, and then have like an expect type scripting possibility added to that. So you can say the VM under test, I expect this from the console and send this to the console. Is that something you would think would be reasonable to implement, or is that not a good idea?
I don't fully follow the idea. So, because in the VM, you are expecting, but you mean that auto-package test outside of the VM should check stuff?
So basically, you would have your auto-package test starts a VM for me with an image already installed. And I say, well, here's an expect script. So the machine boots, and I expect a login prompt. So we log in. That could be taken care of by auto-package or something. And then we say install package, do this, do that. And the output should follow something. And possibly you can also say the environment outside of the auto-package of the VM can have an IP address that we know, so we can communicate with the server necessary. That handles my use case. But if you have the expecting, that would also handle the crypt setup use case and possibly others as well, where basically you have a VM under control of auto-package test and a script that says, this is what we expect to see running inside the VM, like an expect script. It doesn't have to be expect, it can be something else, but something in those lines.
Right.
Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe even the VM doesn't even need to be under control of auto-package test, as long as we have the helper tool that does that for you, assuming the auto-package test environment.
Definitely, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But the infrastructure shouldn't have to be recreated by every package that wants to start a VM. That's basically what I want to say.
Yes.
And if you have a tool that says start a VM and expect, that works too. But I mean, this is what I was thinking.
Yes.
I maybe that's because I'm not using VMs a hell of a lot, and the case exactly not totally clear. But what is this different than having the script as the script in the VM?
So if you have a script inside the VM, it doesn't actually allow you to do early boot tests. Whereas if you have an expect script outside the VM, you can do early boot tests. Because the auto-package test outside the VM would be able to capture the early boot and do whatever is necessary.
Yeah. And I say hello to Pavitch, by the way, who joined.
Hello, Pavitch. How are you? Do you want to say something? So Pavitch is our GSOC intern. She did great work this year.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I have not much to say about autopkg test. Obviously, it's you guys who have always guided me like what to do and what not to do with the project.
Nice.
So I had a great time working with you.
Cool. The next session there is the GSOC presentations, right? In the talks too.
Yeah. I have to join in 5 minutes in that session.
Cool.
I just wanted to say hi to you all. It was really nice working with Paul and Antonio.
Nice. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. Maybe we should plow through the next questions. Gratux3 says, I have MIPS machine. How can we bring it to autopkg test? Well, talk to us. If you want to do it in private, you can mail Terceiro and Elbrus at Debian.org. If you want to do it in public, you use the Debian-CI mailing list, and we can discuss the details. Next question: is there any tutorial docs for autopkg test newbies? Yes. And on ci.debian.net, the documentation link brings you to a place where there are a few tutorials. I think on the Debian wiki we also have some material, right, Paul?
Yeah, I think it links back to that.
Okay, then ci.debian.net/doc. Lists of good examples to get inspiration from. So someone already created a new issue there. I think this is Walter, autopkg test for NBD. Yes, that's we already discussed it.
So the last one is Rhonda.
Yeah, the last one. Rhonda says, I'm absolutely new to autopkg test. I maintain IRCC and Westnoth. Is there a way to support tools that require network access? A local one IRC server should work and interactive or use graphics. Yeah, so for graphics, see the beginning of this this BOF where we discuss the issues. But there are some tools. So if the graphical toolkit supports some sort of accessibility features, then it's easier to test. If not, it's harder. And for network access, your tests are just shell scripts. So you can just install IRC server as part of the test dependencies and have a client interact with that server on localhost. That's easy. And then if you absolutely need the server to be on a different machine, then that brings us back to the discussion we just had about nested VMs and stuff like that.
Of course, it can be even a service that runs permanently somewhere else, but that is not ideal because then we have a dependency on the outside world, and then if there are network issues, your test can fail, not because it's wrong, but just because of the external thing. So we do have a restriction for that, which is not used anywhere particular, but please mark it with the fact that tell autopkg test that it's using internet.
Yes. Yeah, the safest option is always to start a server on localhost.
Yeah, preferably.
And connect to that. And I think that's it. We have 1 minute left. Should probably end here. Thanks everyone for joining. And keep the questions coming in that repository that I pointed out in the beginning. And we can continue the discussion there. Maybe we can even do these office hours regularly during the year and not only on DebConf. Let's see. Thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.